Hello, friends, and happy Friday. My name is Steve, and welcome to the Page Doing Friday Conversation. Hope you all had a great week, and if you didn't, then I hope it gets better for you, because it always gets better. So, want to welcome our guest today, Samantha Eaton. Samantha, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, for people who aren't familiar with you or your work, can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so I published my debut, The Insatiable Hunger of Trees, in February. It is a YA horror and it's pretty dark. It's very woodsy, set in rural Minnesota, um, and it's about loss and acceptance of loss. So that one is actually 99 cents right now in
Hmm.
ebook form. So that is my debut, and I'm also working on putting out another book in September called The Roots in Your Bones, which is also very rural but set in Maine. And it's about a young woman who gets divorced, takes her cat, and just moves to the middle of nowhere into a haunted house. And she kind of underestimates the haunted house and she kind of makes this really goofy friend. And it's horror for sure, but it does have some more comedic vibes. I'd almost call them like rom-com vibes in the tone,
Hmm.
but it's very clearly not a rom-com. But I have fun with it. I'm very excited to put it out. It's near and dear to my heart. And there is a fat cat named Beef.
No, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Just from that.
the Beef.
Beef.
Beef is an
Hi, Briana.
icon.
Hi, sorry I'm late. I had to switch MacBooks.
Oh, no, no worries at all. No problem at all. So, thank you for joining us. And if you could just tell us about you and your work.
Yeah. So I'm Briana Morgan. I am a horror author. I have written 8 books. My ninth is coming out later this year. And in addition to writing books, I also write plays, and I'm starting my foray into video game writing.
Wow, that's cool. How different is it writing a? And of course, there's differences, but what are the main differences between writing something like a play and writing a novella or a novel?
So with a play, you can't do much internal musing, so you can't really do like character thoughts and things like that. Everything that the characters are thinking or feeling, you have to find a way to express that. So it is a good show don't tell medium. I definitely think writing plays has helped me with my novels as far as showing and not telling goes. Also, dialogue is very important because a play is mostly dialogue. You really have to get the dialogue right because if it doesn't sound real, it's pretty obvious right away.
Hmm. And Samantha and Brianna, you two are friends. How did the two of you meet?
We
Twitter?
actually met on Twitter in like 2015, like a whole lifetime ago for me. I was
Oh
living
my
in
god.
Boston and decided I'm going to write because I have nothing better to do. Like, I'm not going to go hiking in Boston. I did not enjoy living there. So I was like, I'm going to write. And Bree was one of my first friends um, in the writing community. And at this point, one of my longest running friends. It was really dorky to say.
Yeah, I feel bad because I don't like I couldn't even tell you the first conversation we had or anything.
I
Um,
couldn't either. I
I
just remember
think what
reading Touch and being like, or not Touch, Blood and Water,
yeah.
and just being like, this girl's messed up. The candy wrapper,
I
the
kind of
candy
like it.
wrapper mouse. How
Oh
dare.
god. But yeah, I would say we got a lot closer after you let me read your book,
It
Tea
wasn't,
Hot.
yeah, I was like, was that the first one that you read?
Yeah, you let me read Tea
Mm,
Hot. I think that
yeah,
was in 2018.
Hmm.
either 2017 or 2018. 2018 was just when things hit the fan, and I was like, here we go.
Yeah.
So,
And then we started talking every day.
yeah,
So,
Hmm.
and now here we are.
yep, here
Nice.
we are.
Were you the first person to read Samantha's book?
I don't
I
know.
don't think
No?
so. So I have two other like critique partners that have been like longtime writer friends of mine. They're both in traditionally published rom-coms, which
Hmm.
is like a very interesting dynamic. And I love their work, and they like always read everything I put out. So I think one of them, if not both of them, were the first to read it. But Brie was definitely an early reader. And then I sent her the one with beef in it, and she was probably one of the first to read Beef. It's not called Beef. It can't be because of that series with I don't know. I think it's a zombie series. I don't even know what it's about. I just know it's called Beef, and I'm like, Beef.
Not the cat.
Not the cat.
And Samantha, you have a book. You said you're working on a book now. Is it? I think you're looking for ARC readers now, right?
Yes, I am doing my first round of digital ARC readers. There's a link on my Twitter for the sign-up sheet. And I'll be closing that first round this weekend and sending those out. I'll probably do a couple of rounds, doing some pretty heavy DIY this time, but it's already gone through some pretty significant revisions, so I'm excited, and I think folks will enjoy it. It doesn't take itself too seriously, so I think that'll be really fun for folks. A nice like breath of fresh air in the they'll read just like some hard horror books and be like, all right, now it's time for this one that does not take itself seriously. Like it's got a himbo in it. Total himbo. We need more of them.
It feels kind of Rachel Harrison-esque in a good way.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, I waited too long to read Rachel's books.
I told you.
I read Cackle and I was just like so emotional. It was so good. It was adorable. And the spider, I love him.
How do the two of you, or actually, how do the three of you choose ARC readers?
Ooh, I have a really chaotic process. I usually just like mention it. I'll tweet about it or mention it on Instagram. I used to have a forum and I was a lot more organized, but lately my timelines have moved up and I have some deadline shifting, so I haven't been able to rely on that as much. Honestly, most of my ARC readers are my friends because I know they'll do it in the time that I need them to do it in.
Yeah, I kind of do a similar chaotic process. I do cast kind of a broad net. Like I'll post about it on Twitter and Instagram. I don't even know if I posted about it on Instagram yet, and TikTok. And I'll share my form and then I'll kind of vet them. Like I'll just check like their profile and make sure that they're not like a bot or like a weird AI person that's like super about AI. I'm not putting my work in the hands of those folks. So I do a little bit of a vetting process, but otherwise I'm like, if you want to read the ARC, read the ARC. If you leave a review, awesome. If you don't, whatever, it's free help. So I'm not going to be out here like, where's my review, dude? Like, where is it? It's nuts.
What about you, Pio?
Well, some of my process, I kind of divided it in two parts. So like, I remember being an indie author starting out, and my wife was my business manager, my lovely Debbie, hey, sweetheart. She had this big list compiled of all these bloggers that accepted sci-fi fantasy and like hundreds, and she sent out, of course, nobody knows me, knows who I am, mostly crickets. But we got about 10 to 12 bloggers that were kind enough to like, okay, I'll give it a try, right? Most unfortunately really liked it. So from them, I kind of stuck with it, and with each book I sent to them, they're solid, right? They're amazing people, and they, like I said, thankfully it clicked with them. But then for each book, I get I look for endorsement quotes from people who like the book enough and are willing to kind of put their name on it. Steve actually is going to be on my next one. I'm very honored. He's one of those people. Obviously, those people are really close to me, like close friends, and people I trust, and people who will give me a lot of good feedback of the book, and again, willing to put their name behind it. So each book I have 4, 1 for the front cover and 3 for the back. So that's kind of my system there. So
nice.
Sounds like a lot of work.
That's awesome that your wife helps with that, though. Just the organization, like that's probably immensely helpful.
Oh, she's a secret weapon. She does so much behind the scenes. I couldn't even tell you. It would take another broadcast to tell you all stuff that she does. I just don't. I mean, I'm blessed. I don't know how. Like, hats off to everybody who just does it on their own. Like, it's, as you said, Samantha, it's a lot of being an indie author is a lot of work.
So much work. I've gotten really good at Canva though, making my own little graphics. I probably need to have Canva taken away, to be completely honest.
I love Canva.
I love it so much.
Again, that's something Deb does. She does, like, if there's a promotional something for social media, she'll go on Canva and make up a little graphic or something. So yeah, again, I'm really lucky.
We love to see it.
What are some, if a new author came to any of you and asked what are some essential skills to have as an independent author, what would you recommend, like Canva and things like that? What would you kind of tell them to look into or explore?
Ooh.
I think for starters, and this is going to sound kind of like a no-brainer, but obviously Canva skills, self-promo skills, but not being a jerk is probably the biggest one. Like, don't be mean to reviewers, set reasonable timelines. Don't be creepy. Like, within the realm of horror, be creepy, but don't be like someone that makes people uncomfortable or unsafe
Don't be
to be
a
around.
creep.
Yeah, don't be a creep. And just be humble. When people don't like it, they don't like it. Don't be weird about it.
I would definitely say, like, forge genuine relationships. Like, I mean, being humble, that's a great point Samantha made. We succeed in this thing together. So, it's writing seems really solitary in terms of when you're actually at the keyboard, but everything else you do pretty well in like a collective, right? Kind of a village. So, support each other and boost people, and they'll boost you, and I'd also say for like more on the technical side, you have to kind of figure out Amazon. That's one of those things where algorithms and how to format your book, and like those are things that you need to know. So that's stuff that really comes in handy. And sometimes, especially if I'm not very technically savvy at all. So, if you need help, then, kind of, you might have to reach out to some friends. And yeah, that's another thing too. It's great to have people to consult with for advice, not just about writing and the whole process, that's a beast, but about the technical aspects, like your website. If you have your own website, or or Zon or Ingram, or like I said, Amazon, the algorithms, formatting. There's so many things that goes into editing. Where to get a reliable, credible editor, like just wealth of knowledge, information you can get from fellow writers and people, not just writers, because the writing community is huge. There's editors, there's agents, there's bloggers. So, but someone knows something about something that you're probably going to want to know about. So yeah, so it's great when you have those relationships in your corner. I mean, I've learned so much from Steve. I'm planning to start a YouTube channel. Like, well, he and Taylor, those are my go-tos for that stuff, right? So it's great to have friends.
Piggybacking off of that, I would say that asking for help is probably the biggest skill. Knowing what you don't know and going to someone who does know it, and not being afraid to ask questions, because no matter how much prep you do and no matter what you think you know, you will get your first book wrong. There's so much to do, you'll just get it wrong. And you can ask everyone, and I'm sure everyone would say the same thing. There is something that we all would do over when it comes to our debut. And I think as an author, that is the best way to grow, is to continuously ask for help and ask for, mentorship where you can. And just being open and honest, I guess, about your shortcomings and working to improve them.
What are some things that you learned, Samantha, after your first book? What are some takeaways that you know now, or things to either do or avoid after your first one?
Well, I think I went a little hard with physical arcs because I was really excited, and that was actually really expensive. And just kind of being realistic about the fact that it's an independently published book. Like, no matter how good your editor is, there's going to be weird stuff that happens in formatting or technical issues or any of that. And just to be like really appreciative when people are like, hey, chapter 57 is weird formatting wise. Like, did you know about that? Like, just being like, oh yeah, thanks for the heads up, and updating it, and like being receptive to that kind of feedback instead of being like, ew, that's nitpicky. A lot of people have reached out about chapter 57, and we have fixed it. Um, I did forget to upload the Amazon updated KDP file, so I did that actually yesterday. But just like keeping all your ducks in a row and knowing that like things are gonna happen, and if you like lose your mind over a tiny mistake, like you're gonna have a really bad time.
What about you, Briana? You're 9 or 10 books in, right? You've published quite a few.
Yeah, number 9 is coming out this year, and potentially 10.
Oh, wow.
But God, first of all, I would say don't write about a global pandemic, because then when it actually happens, no one's going to buy that book, and everyone's going to be a little bit afraid of you because they're going to think that you manifested it. So that's my first piece of advice. Very specific. Not sure how many people it will apply to, but there's that. And God, yeah, you think writing the book is the hardest part, and it is. It's pretty hard. But if you have never looked at the back end of KDP before, and it's asking you about ISBNs and trim sizes and paper colors and all that, you're going to be like, I don't know what this is. And it's like Sam said, you can't freak out over every little thing, or you will just be constantly stressed. There's always stuff that slips through. Even in TradPub, there's typos and things that slip through. So the only difference with us is that we can upload it and fix it ourselves. But the other thing I would say, like Sam said, is the physical arcs, because I too was excited about physical arcs, and I think I sent like 40 out, which was terrible.
Oh, wow.
Just so many books, and it was very expensive, and I think I only got like 7 reviews from that. So
Oh, no. Wow.
yeah, I've learned my lesson, and a lot of those went to friends, people who were going to buy the book anyway. And since then, I have kind of learned that if you do physical arcs, you save them for people like big reviewers, or people who maybe wouldn't pick the book up otherwise.
What about you, PL? What are some valuable lessons you've learned through your experience?
Wow, so many. I'd say the ones that stick out, well, I think there's 3. One, I thought I got a pretty good jump on the marketing side, like the social media side, and getting out there well before the book was coming out, like 6 or 7 months out. If I could do it over again, I would have been even sooner. I know it seems crazy to say that, okay, like you're marketing a book that's not coming out for a year. Well, you know what? There's a lot of work. There's a lot of work to do to get people to be aware of your book, especially as an independent author. And I'd say the earlier you get started, the better. And especially letting them get to know you, like what you're all about, like the person behind the book. And not everyone's comfortable with social media. I totally get that. It's totally understandable. It can be kind of intimidating, scary place. But in today's environment, especially with pretty well everything we do is on some kind of platform. Amazon is a platform. Goodreads is a platform. So I'd say get out in front of your release. I'd say minimum 6 months to year out, and get your presence, your footprint on social media. Start telling people a bit about, teasing. You can tease certain things about what your book's about. Give them some samples, maybe your prose, or there's things you can do, right? So I'd say the market, because to be honest with you, Briana was talking about the hardest parts. For me, the marketing is like hard. Marketing, getting people to know where your book is hard. It takes a lot of work. So second thing I'd say quickly is that just be careful. You're gonna have some really high moments and some really low moments. Like you're gonna have great reviews and some reviews that are gonna, oh my gosh, you're gonna hit the gut. So and at first it's gonna affect you either way. You're gonna be really like pumped and stoked when you get that really great review, and when you get a bad one, it's going to be down for a while. I think, especially independent authors, we take our reviews. Most of us read them all, and take it to heart. So, and again, in not saying that, kind of like getting that balance between not being tone deaf to criticism, but yet writing your work the way, like if all your reviews are saying the same thing, there might be, a bit of an exposure in your writing that you need to fix. But if it's like a one-off, then, don't think it's the end of the world. Like I have to go change this. Do you know what I mean? It might just be subjective opinion. So that's a fine balance, but that's probably everything in terms of reviews. You're going to get some highs and lows, but it'll normally even out in the end, right? And I guess the third thing is that, you gotta like persevere, because it's hard when you first write your first book. You're like, just so, oh my God, I got it out. I got my first book, and that's amazing. And for some people, that's what they want to do. They just want to write it one book, get it out there, and that's fantastic. If you're in it for the long game and you want to have like a body of work, yeah, you got to keep going, man. And you're only as good as your last book, which is scary. But when it comes to the whole sales and all that, like, yeah, you're literally like, it's consistency and things like that will be the key. Like, you literally, especially as an indie, you have to keep churning out books and stay relevant, because there's a lot of books out there. So, unless you for some reason catch lightning and your one book is like a gazillion seller, and you can kind of, plug that for a while. I mean, for most of us, it's about the body of work. It's about series or standalones, or depending on what genre you're writing in. Like, I've put out 3 books in 2 years, and I'm working hard on number 4 and to try and get a book out every year, because that's kind of the way the market dictates that, you're kind of, like I said, you're as good as your last book, and you got to start thinking about your next project. So
I have so much respect for all of you to do it. It's so much to deal with. Our friend Anthony Self, Horrible, has a question. When you're writing something in self-publishing, do you have an idea for your cover, i.e. Fever, or do you have an illustrator artist that you can call on? Or do you rely on publishers, and do you trust them to take your voice and put a cover to it?
So this is probably, I'm going to go ahead and say that this is probably different for all of us. And my process has changed from my first book. But typically, when I start writing the book, I have kind of an idea of what I want the cover to look like. I make a Pinterest board for every book I write, and I kind of use that as a mood board, put together the aesthetic. And sometimes I'll include covers that I like, that are inspirational to me for that particular project. And I will find an artist that does similar work. Now I have 2 or 3 artists that I use kind of on rotation, depending on the project and the timeline. But it has taken me several years to find artists that I really connect with. And I really like the consistency, which is why I stick with the same artist.
Yeah, I've used the same artist for both of my books now, and she's great. And I'm not super visually inclined. Like, I do photography, but like beyond that, like I just kind of shit post as far as my graphics. Like, that's who I am as a person, just like a raccoon of visuals. And so I've used the same person because both times I've been like, here are some things that I want incorporated. Do what you want. And both times she's delivered like beyond my expectations, and I'm really thankful for that. And she's super cool when I'm like, oh, can you like make a tweak to this, or like I need you to do a different like shape cover for a different format maybe. And she's just really receptive, and she just kind of gets what I'm trying to say in my unhinged, like, I want it to look like this kind of way. I don't usually know what it's going to look like or have an idea, other than like, I want centipedes on the cover or something. There is something else that I'm working on that I'll be using a different cover artist that I'm really excited about, not because it's like a different person, but just to get a different perspective and a different flair on this project, 'cause it's a little bit different than the other 2 that I've got going on.
I wonder how much of a concern is when you're commissioning an artist. How much of a concern is if it's AI generated or not? That's something I wonder. Is that a concern at all, or are we not to that point yet?
I
Or does
asked
it
my
matter to you?
artist, like, hey, I don't want AI, and just like make sure you either use like publicly available stock or stuff that you're like licensed to use. And she's been really good about like, I don't use AI.
I have a good relationship with my artists, and I trust that they won't do that. They're all, excuse me. I got too fired up talking about covers. They're all very staunchly anti-AI, so I haven't had to worry about that as much. But it's definitely an interesting point, because I know that's becoming a lot more prevalent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's getting crazy out there for sure. Lots of AI stuff.
Yeah.
Our friend JC and Byrne commented, I started pitching my new book before I started writing it.
I've been pitching a book that I anticipate releasing maybe next year, just like vaguely. And I've been making TikToks about it, and people are like, wow, that sounds really fun. What does that have to do with any of these other two things? I'm like, don't worry about it. You'll find out. It's cool. That's like one of the things that I learned when I was pursuing traditional publishing was like I'd be querying something and I'm like, I gotta get this next thing going so that if this doesn't work out, I have another thing to query. And I'm really happy to be self-pub, but the pace has quickened now. I'm like, I gotta stay relevant and I want to put out a ton of books. I have a lot of ideas.
I just want to quickly say, hey, Laurel, what's up? Laurel's awesome. Yeah, I guess that's my opinion. That's how I feel about that. You only use your last book, and yeah, I agree that can be intimidating. That said, I think that applies very much more if you're self-published. I mean, if you're Stephen King, I think you can kind of rest on your laurels to a certain degree. If you're Sarah J. Maas or but I'm saying for us, for self-published authors, I think there's a lot more pressure there to keep for continuous improving. And obviously, I would think that most writers, regardless of how you're published, they're all looking to get better with each book. I just feel that there's a bit more pressure, and maybe that's my own impression with self-published authors that you really have to keep. I think the industry is still far less forgiving on us. Like Samantha was talking earlier about mistakes, like typos. Trad books have lots of typos, but in a self-published book, when you have typos, I think you're judged more harshly, right? That's just how I feel. I found lots of issues in trad books, but it just doesn't seem to be evaluated the same. But I think that stigma is changing because now I think self-published books are a lot more credible. But in terms of how they're viewed. But yeah, I do think that a self-published author, there's always that next book that people are looking to evaluate.
And Laurel commented, "No, I think there's truth to it for sure. Regardless, it's still a little scary. Yeah, it is scary. But it's
I don't know what's happening, y'all. I will say that the more books you have out, the less pressure you feel for each book to take off. Because if you only have like one or two books out, you're like, oh shit, this is all that I'm known for. Whereas, if you have like 15 books out, if one doesn't do well, all of them combined will do well enough to kind of cover that for you. And I'm not saying that means you should kind of like not take your work seriously at any point or anything like that. It's just that you become a lot less focused on the success of one project. And at least for me, that taking that pressure off has allowed me to be a lot more creative with each release.
Yeah, it is tough to do that, but yeah, I don't know how you guys do it. Just hearing you talk is making me sweat. I don't know.
I think it's when, especially if like for fantasy, sci-fi, you have a series. Well, if you have a trilogy, or for me, I'm writing a 7-book series. Well, if people aren't invested in book 1, and minimum, they might go, okay, you know what, book 1 was okay, but I'll give book 2 a chance. And if book 2 isn't to you, they're usually out, right? So, unless you have another series or, like as Briana said, another project going on, then maybe okay, you release something else. Okay, well, that I really like that. So, so again, you're not relying on just the one series, right? So, standalones and novellas are great. I think a great thing to do, just to make sure they're fast. You can have something else that's distinct from, but yeah, it's tough, man. And you know what though, it's with the amount of people that are writing and publishing now, I feel like it's becoming more and more accessible, especially with self-publishing, and there's so much great stuff out there. So it's a great time for writing, right? Regardless of the genre. So there is a lot of positivity, it's as intimidating as it is, there's a lot of positivity now. And as we talked about before, and Briana was mentioning it, Samantha, with all these friends and people to help you out, it just makes the journey a lot easier, a lot more fun too. So.
Yes. So for Samantha and Brianna, what got you both into horror? What is it about the genre that made you want to write in it?
Oh.
I'm just kind of creepy. I feel like this is cliche, but I was just like really into Stephen King when I was little, and like I've kind of aged out of that. Like I have other favorites now, but I mean like Pet Cemetery and Cujo really resonate with me for some reason. Like I was in the single digits and was like afraid of rabies while everyone else was like afraid of spiders. I'm like, no, but you might get rabies, dude. Um, and I've always just been into like that kind of stuff. And I just am really drawn to the community too, because it's very, especially the indie community, it's very DIY, very like operates within itself. And that's every scene I've been in has been DIY and help one another out and lift each other up. And it just feels like home. I gotta stop saying corny things.
Yeah, I would agree with you though. I've always liked scary things. I actually used to give myself night terrors because I would read the Goosebumps books and I would have nightmares, and my mom would be like, "Stop reading the books," but I just couldn't stop. I would just keep reading them, and then wonder why I had nightmares because I was a kid. Kids are not the smartest sometimes, and yeah, I've always written things that were a little creepy, but it kind of, especially in college, they really steered me away from that. I studied creative writing in college, and a lot of creative writing programs, they want you to write literary fiction, which I always thought was silly because it doesn't sell as well as genre fiction for the most part. So anytime I tried to do literary fiction, it would always take a dark turn or a dark twist, and my professor would be like, maybe dial it back a little bit. And then I graduated from college and realized, oh, I can be creepy. I can be the creepy girl, and there are people who love it. And I tried fantasy for a while. I was just kind of like fighting the horror impulse. And then, like Sam said, I found the community, and I realized how supportive the community was, and how, we're all a bunch of weirdos, and people think we're scary, but the horror community, we're some of the nicest people in the world. And like Sam said, it feels like home. So
yeah,
that's why I stuck to horror.
It's so fun to write too. Like if you're having like the worst day ever or going through really garbage time, like you can write this awful, disgusting monster and be like, okay, if that nasty thing can be defeated, whatever dumb stuff I'm going through right now can be defeated. And that just always resonates with me.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah, great point. And our friend Anthony Soff asks, loved point horror. I'm not familiar with point horror.
I don't know that one.
I'm not the only one. Okay. And let us know, Anthony, what and let us know about point horror. And our friend Christina's here. Christina, thank you for coming by. But yeah, there's so many wonderful people in the horror community that you would think they'd be creepy and weird, and well, they are creepy, but in a good way. They're
we're not
the
creeps.
friendliest people.
We're not
Exactly.
creeps. We're creepy.
Exactly.
And also
Exactly.
JCW, or I saw you say, way to call me out. I'm not calling you out. I don't know if I know you, but I might know you, but I don't think you're a creep. Regardless.
No, he's being silly. He's one of the nicest people too.
Yeah.
But
I
just
like silly. I would not have felt good if he, on the off chance he was not being silly, and I was like, oh, I'm not calling you out.
Yeah. No, he's wonderful. He's really good. He's trying to be funny. So, but he's one of the nicest people.
I just turned into some like the anxiety mom for a second. I was like, oh my God, I hope I didn't hurt his feelings.
No, he acts like he's tough, but he's very sensitive. But no, he'll be fine.
Same. I get it.
Yeah. Anthony comments, was much in the vein of YA horror. Maybe I'm showing my age.
Slightly before my time. Slightly. I just looked it up.
Oh, okay.
They look like a lot of fun, though.
I'll have to check them out. I like fun.
They seem very Fear Street-esque or Christopher Pike.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds fun.
from my 2 seconds of research.
After extensive research, this is what it is.
I love vintage book covers, like vintage horror covers anyway, so I'm excited to look at those.
I went like used book shopping when I visited Jenny Howe, who she's a romance author, traditionally published, and she's like one of my favorite people. And we went into like 8 million different used bookstores down in Massachusetts where she lives. And she found a bunch of vintage. I think it was Christopher Pike, and it was like the best find ever. She was psyched. And they're like $2 a book. It was incredible.
Do any of you have a favorite vintage cover? Horror cover?
I can't picture a damn thing right now.
Flowers in the Attic. There's this, I think it's the mass market paperback cover. That one really sticks in my head because I remember seeing that one at the library all the time. And I was just told that like I wasn't old enough to read that book. And then I finally read that book and I'm like, I don't think I should have read it.
Yeah.
I was like 20 and I'm like, still don't think I should have read it.
Yeah, like I'm thinking right now, like I'm fully an adult and I don't want to read that.
You know, no one needs to.
Well, yeah,
but that cover sticks out to me because it's like the house and then like the red flower and then the girl with like the shocked expression.
Hey Taylor, thanks for coming by.
Morning. Sorry, I'm late.
That's okay. We'll give you a pass this time.
Just this time, right?
Just this time. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Briana. Hi, Samantha. Morning. Nice to meet you.
How are you?
Nice to meet you.
Doing good. Thanks for asking.
Brianna and Samantha, just so you both, I think Samantha we mentioned earlier about Brianna. Taylor's not crazy. She's in Japan, so it's morning for her.
Yeah. So
I mean, we've all been going through things, so it's okay if you were crazy.
I never question it.
I appreciate the support either way.
In my day job, I work with a lot of folks in India. So when it's morning for me, it's afternoon for them. So like this is just the reverse of my everyday life. So I'm like,
right.
It could be morning there. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, you never know, right? With these like online chats where someone is. So we have several versions of lives that we all do, but the craziest one is a whiskey and books group because every single person is in a different time zone all over the world. Wow. So scheduling that is just like, look, someone's getting up at the butt crack of dawn or doing day drinking or like there's no way to make this work.
I mean, whiskey's an all day snack.
Little aperitif in the morning.
Yeah,
exactly. At least it goes with coffee. So.
Yeah, Irish coffee. Perfect.
Mm-hmm. Can't beat it. So sorry, I came in and derailed the conversation. What were you guys talking about when I popped in?
We were talking about vintage horror covers.
And Brie could think of one. I can't think of anything. Maybe Cujo with like the blurry high contrast dog, but I don't know if that's vintage. I shouldn't be really scared about it. It's like that dog has rabies.
Rabies is scary.
Yes, I'm terrified of it. I actually have a pre-exposure rabies vaccine, which is like not a normal thing to get, but I do wildlife volunteer work and I was like, I'm not messing around. It's not cheap and insurance doesn't cover it. But I'm not going to get rabies.
Okay, this is a horrible because it's on my phone, and it's going to get blurred, but it's like you can kind of see it, I guess.
Yeah.
This is terrible. Okay. There's a woman here.
I just I've read a synopsis of that book and I'm just like, hard pass.
That's about all you need.
Hard pass. I'm a baby about some things though.
And Laurel strongly supports that snack. I guess a question for all of you, if you're all whiskey drinkers, what's your go-to whiskey?
I don't.
I feel like every time you ask me a question about my favorite thing, I go with a really hipster answer. But Wyoming whiskey has a really good rye whiskey called Outrider. And it's so freaking good. And I have to now that my boyfriend doesn't live in Wyoming anymore, yay. But now I have to ship it in It's ridiculous. Like, oh, I gotta import my whiskey from Wyoming. It's so good. It's just like you could just drink it. I may have a different answer after this month because I'll be going to Scotland and I may have a different favorite.
Oh, cool.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
keep hitting my head.
I'm glad I'm not the only one with a margarita.
Oh yeah. Mine's spicy.
That's the only way I can drink tequila is as a margarita. But
I keep dropping the salt on my lap. It's fine.
I'm very much a bourbon girl. So what I really enjoyed before I stopped being able to drink for a while here was Eagle Rare.
Mm.
Eagle Rare was it's part of the Buffalo Trace label.
Mhm.
It's like a higher up the chain essentially than the normal Buffalo Trace, and I'm a huge fan. It's like a perfect balance of sweet, but it doesn't have, I don't like too much of a cherry note, so like Maker's Mark is a bit too much for me. So I think Eagle Rare is a great balance. I'm a big fan.
What about you, Briana? What's your drink of choice?
Whiskey. It's funny with whiskey because anytime somebody orders a whiskey drink, I'm like, let me try that. And everyone's always like, you won't like it. And I try it every time anyway. And then I just make an awful face.
Confirmed.
So, yeah, it's definitely not whiskey. That's not my drink. I like wine. I like some mixed drinks. I'm kind of weird about them too. I drank too much vodka in my early 20s. So if I can taste a lot of the vodka, I just feel like I'm going to die. So that has kind of put a hamper on a lot of drinking for me. For a long time, I just drank seltzers. Like I went through a White Claw Truly phase. Yeah, I don't know. I'll drink almost anything with rum or vodka in it, as long as the vodka is just a little bit. But rum and I tend to go well together.
I never want to see rum again.
And I'm a white woman, so margarita is probably high.
I drink like a white man. I'm out here with my IPAs and my old fashions.
You drink like a divorced father of 3.
I do.
I'm the exact same. Yes.
And I just kind of, I don't know, maybe just like spiritually, I'm a dad. Like I have no intention of having kids and I'm a woman. I just have dad vibes.
It's true.
It's true. I have to just
I feel very paternally supported when I'm with you.
My job is done.
A divorced father of 3. That's great. Anthony mentions if you can get it, Powers Irish whiskey. That'll give you a sublime, smooth taste.
I like a good Irish whiskey.
Probably not smooth enough for me. But I would still try it.
You would, and then you'd be like, ugh, you're a monster for drinking this.
Yeah, there's over here there's something called shochu, which is like you know when you think of Japan you probably think of sake, which is like kind of rice wine, but shochu is like their harder liquor, and it's very, very popular where I live in southern Japan in Fukuoka, and it's like an old man's drink if you drink it on the rocks, and I love it. And it's made with sweet potatoes. Well, there's a lot of different versions, but the one's popular near me is made with sweet potatoes. So every time I order it with friends, they're like, "Ew, how old are you?"
That sounds so good.
Your old grandpa. It's so good. I think we have a similar palate. I think you'd really enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
But
it
it's
sounds
definitely like the grandpa drink. I order it proudly. So.
Sweet potatoes. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, like I'm thinking, like the gears are turning. I'm like, how am I going to acquire this? I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna figure it out. It's gonna happen.
I can give you some recommendations in the chat after.
Yes, please.
Yeah, sure. It's delicious.
Yeah. Anthony agrees.
What about you, PL? You were like thumbing up rum a lot there. Is that your?
Oh yeah, I'm a rum person. I don't get me wrong, I love almost any hard liquor. Glenfiddich, that's single malt Scotch, right? That's probably, if you're talking about whiskey, I know it's probably more. It's not as bougie as the stuff that you drink, Taylor, but it's not as highbrow, but it's it's decent. But I'm a rum person. Like it's the Caribbean African in me, right? So, Malgay rum, one of the oldest rums in the world, Barbados, 1700s. That's my preferred jam. So I like my Ray and Nephew. It's Jamaican white rum, especially. It's a great mixer. So yeah, anything with rum. I mean, I'm pretty well there, right? So, and I'm a granddad, and I'm an old man, so I drink rum like an old man. So I'll be couched back in my chair, and it's the little 1 bill cube of ice, and yeah, that's my jam.
That's a vibe.
Yeah.
Very much a vibe.
Just like the chair and the drink is just like, that's all you need in life. Maybe a cat. Like, it's perfect.
Yeah. And a good book. I love to, when I'm reading, especially if it's like something I'm like a hardcover, like something I'm really in, like,
I can't even hold physical books anymore because my hands just decide they don't want to do it. So I'm like fully Kindle, but I get all comfy with like some creature in my house and, drink, and it's just great. I have a really great bird chair. It's my old lady chair. It's got birds on it.
I know the chair.
The chair. You know the bird chair?
I thought it was shaped like a bird.
No, it has birds on it.
I'm like, where did you get that?
I got it on discount. It was like $120. I was like, heck yeah. And at the same moment, this like elderly like extra in a Stephen King movie was buying the same chair. So
didn't make you feel old at all, though, right?
No, I was like, hey, great minds. And she was like, okay.
So do you do a lot of rescue work, Samantha?
Yeah. I have 3 rescue cats and 3 rescue dogs. 2 are pit bulls and 1's a German Shepherd. Some of my chickens are rescues that I've taken from people that have needed like either some kind of physical therapy or just not to be near a husky because huskies are. So I have a couple of those and they're all good. But I also volunteer at an avian sanctuary with wild birds, and I've been learning a lot from them. So I can do like basic wound care and like either through that or through chickens. Like I had to just wrap up my mom's chicken's like disgusting foot injury. It was horrible. And I am the director of operations on a wildlife transport nonprofit in the state of Maine because it's a big state and we don't have a ton of rehabbers. So we'll take an injured or orphaned animal from someone who finds it, transport it to a licensed rehabber, and we're working on building a network of other volunteer drivers who can help with that.
Wow, Ketsame, kudos to you. Wow, you must be insanely busy.
Never a dull moment. Never a dull moment. It's good. I get to hang out with like some really cool animals and some really cool people.
Awesome.
Wow, that was awesome. And huskies are a lot, I can confirm.
My sister has one and a border collie, and I'm babysitting them next weekend. So there's going to be some guests on my TikToks.
That's a lot of energy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Right
and she has 3 cats too, but one of them's a kitten. Like my cats are just like, all my animals are old, so they've chilled out. Like they are nuts. Just all of them. But she lives in a part of the state that has DoorDash, so I can get food delivered. I'm really excited.
Nice trade-off, right?
I'm going to hang out with this husky and this border collie, and I'm going to get so much Taco Bell. Because there's also a Taco Bell. We don't have that here.
How much of that ends up in the husky and the collie's belly, though, right? Like.
Oh, I don't think I should feed them Taco Bell. They're very sensitive babies.
Oh, okay.
My dogs, like, they could eat anything and be fine, but her dogs.
Oh, okay. Discerning power.
They have a special diet, do they?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one of mine has a special diet too, but like they just eat chicken poop frequently. They love it.
I mean, Taco Bell is hard for some humans to eat, so.
I mean, Taco Bell chicken poop. Really, what's the difference?
Just the presentation, right?
Exactly.
The shell. That's it.
But
Just
Taco
want to
Bell
crunch
tastes so
around.
good going down though. Oh,
It
Taco Bell.
does.
Yeah.
And I
Does.
didn't even have Taco Bell until 2 years ago. Like for the first time I had Taco Bell, literally
wow.
2 years ago.
Wow.
I lived a sheltered life without fast food.
You're probably better off for it health-wise. So there you go.
Probably.
Anthony had a question for the authors. Redfall, the game, just came out to scathing reviews. Potential Salem's Lot reboot in the works. What do you think needs to happen for the reinvention of vampire in literature?
Loved Salem's Lot. That's one of my favorite Stephen King books, I think.
Mhm.
I probably defer obviously to the horror people like Steve, Samantha, Briana. I don't know how much horror you read, Taylor. I don't think you read a lot, but I most of the horror I've read is Stephen King, and for me, it's much more about the psychological aspect.
Mhm.
So I'm not a gamer, at least not anymore. I don't really play video games, so that also isn't my. But one thing I will say is that for anything to do with vampires, for me, it's always about like there's three things. It's one, it's always about I want like a big build up into like how this vampire became a vampire. I don't want to just like gets bitten and like whatever. Like there's got to be something more there.
Mhm.
And I also, I'm a sucker for romance. I like the romantic aspect with vampirism, right? Like I like there to be some, something going on there. And I also want to see like vampire and vampire battles. Like I love the underworld, right? Like so, like that's like those. So, but I don't know. I've never seen Redfall, so probably more for the gamers and the horror experts here to weigh in.
You say vampire on vampire battles. I'm like immediately thinking Twilight with the
Yeah,
Cullen versus the Vulture. And like,
yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I
Oh,
love
man.
Twilight. I don't even care.
It's fun.
It's so fun. It's just silly, and I had a great time. But I also really liked Scott Moses's vampire book, Our Own Unique Affliction, where it was just like a bummer, but like it was done in a way that was like, wow, immortality actually sucks. And I really appreciated like the reflectiveness on that and just like the point, like where does your humanity really end? Like I really appreciated that. But also like I really want to watch Renfield because I think if we could make vampires funny, like what we do in the shadows is hysterical.
It's
But
so
like
good.
making vampires funny, I think will add some pizzazz. Like keep them scary, add some body horror, but let's add some jokes. And this is my entire brand. Like let's be funny, but let's also be kind of icky about it.
Yeah,
Totally.
the thing that I look for in vampires, and I think a lot of people are shifting more this way, is kind of the inclusivity. Like you can have black vampires, you can have queer vampires, you can have all these other. Where in the past it's just been like the palest, whitest man you can think of, and he's always like straight, and that's it, and he's like wealthy somehow.
And they're all ex-Confederate soldiers, like the vampire Twilight and the one with the guy who looks like a foot and Ian Somerhalder.
Yeah, Vampire Diaries.
Oh, there we go. I was gonna say I know that
Yeah,
one.
like why were like Confederate soldiers? Like can't we just like not? Can we why are there multiple?
It's not
So-
enough that they're monsters. They have to
And-
be monsters.
Right, it's like they're monsters, but they're also racists, and one of them looks like a foot. Like I hated that character so
It's
much.
really bad that I knew immediately
You did.
what you were talking about.
I'm like, I like Damon, but the other one, I didn't like him at all. He was just a toot.
But I mean, there's like, the Interview with a Vampire reboot is just unabashedly queer, and it's great.
Yeah.
I need to get caught up with that. So I think either if it goes more that direction in terms of inclusivity, or if it's like what we do in the shadows or Renfield, where it's just kind of like, isn't this silly? Like we we used to be afraid of these monsters, but they're just like bumbling, and you know, they have a hard time killing people sometimes, and they get blood on the carpet and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, I think you kind of have to go to one of those two directions, because the whole like, oh, Dracula's scary thing has been done for so long.
What We Do in the Shadows was kind of fruity too, especially Matt Berry's character, who is just an icon on so many levels.
Foot.
That's awesome. Oh, I forgot to mention. I loved Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. Loved that. I love that
That's a
book.
good one too.
Yeah, I love that book. So maybe something like that. I mean, scary as hell, but you know, romance, dark. You know, kind of very macabre. You know, very like almost a punk. You know, like vibe in some ways. Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
Yes. And Samantha, we know you have other commitments. We don't want to keep you too long because we know you have other things tonight. But thank you for coming by and joining us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is fun. Time flew. I gotta like chug this margarita, and thankfully I'm not driving to the oyster place.
It's a big margarita.
It's so big.
Yeah,
and
that's
it's
a
spicy.
big ass margarita.
Like, I just have a sip, and I'm
Like,
really jealous.
We arrived at my boyfriend's parents' house because it's close to the oyster place, and also they have better Wi-Fi. And his mother's like, "Do you want a margarita?" And I'm like, "Yes." And she's like, "Do you want jalapenos in it?" I was like, "Yeah." And she made me this bucket. So I can drink it really fast, but I'm not going to do that on camera because I will make a mess.
Before you go, for anyone wanting to connect with you, where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, on Twitter, I am Samantha_Eaton3, and on Insta and TikTok, I'm Samantha Eaton Writes. And on any of those, you can find my website, and there's a bunch of other, like my email or Facebook, or I think my Spotify is on my website in case you want to listen to some really weird metal or bimbo core. I've been going through a bimbo core phase. And like with that, I'm not going to elaborate. I'm gonna dip.
Okay.
So it was great talking to you all.
I'm curious
you
now.
too.
I want to know that.
You gotta Google it.
Go
Gonna
check it
Google
out.
it. I see it.
Bye. Have a good night.
Take care. Have a good night.
He looked like a foot. I was like,
Yeah.
well, the
I don't
funniest
know.
thing is,
I don't know if
Hilarious.
it's because like I used to watch that show, or because I know Sam so well, or both. I was just like, oh, Vampire Diaries, easy.
oh, okay. I was gonna ask you, who is that? Who looks like a foot? I can picture it.
The blonde guy. What is his
The
name?
other brother, right?
The
I don't
other
know
one,
the actor's name. Yeah, the other one.
the light,
Not the good one. The other one. Yeah, I don't remember.
not the broody, like dark haired one. The other one.
The obviously end game part of the triangle. Not that one. Yeah.
Briana,
On the vampire. Oh, go
no,
ahead.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just gonna ask about the Vampire Diaries. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll stay on that topic then, because I was going to say with the vampire topic, it might sound kind of hypocritical considering I'm binge reading Vampire Academy right now, but in general, the kind of bad boy YA tropey romance, I think, has been done to a point, you know, that it's kind of overdone. I mean, Vampire Academy, the books I'm reading now, came at the height of that. Right. So where could we go from here? Someone had mentioned Kate Beckinsale in the comments. Underworld. Yeah. And the other movie that I love with her in it, unabashedly love, is Van Helsing.
Oh my
I know
God.
that movie's shit.
Yeah.
I know it is,
Yeah.
but I love it. Like, unironically love it.
It's campy. It's cool.
Yeah, it's fun. And
I have a huge crush on her, so I'll watch.
Girl, me
I'll
too.
watch Van Helsing anytime, even though it's so bad.
That was my bisexual awakening, I think. But I think the way that the Dracula is portrayed there, he doesn't have like a good side. He actually just is this soulless being that wants to further his existence, right, by whatever means necessary. I enjoy that portrayal of Dracula. So even though that has been done a lot, I think it would be fun to see that portrayed more, just actually as an undead being that doesn't have a soul, and that's just what it is. There's nothing to be salvaged. You know, they just kind of are what they are. I think that would be a fun trajectory to see vampires go in. That was all I was going to say.
Briana, do you have an archetype that you either want to write about or enjoy writing about?
Like monster wise or like a horror trope?
Both.
Okay. I really wanted to do killer mermaids, and I've done that. So that's that's hard.
Have you read Into the Drowning Deep by Mira?
Yeah. It's funny because
you think of
sometimes I'll post on TikTok about my book and people be like, "Oh, I loved Into the Drowning Deep," and I'm like, "Me too," but that's not my book.
I just mentioned it because that's the only time I've ever heard of killer mermaids besides what you just mentioned, which is
it's very good. And yeah, so killer mermaids. I'm not a big werewolf person, so I probably won't ever do a werewolf book. More monsters. I want to do more monsters because I really like monsters. I like making my own monsters. And I want to do more body horror and more like really gross body horror because in the past I've kind of held back and now I'm like, I'm just going to be disgusting. I just want to be nasty. I want my fiance to read it and be like, why? That's the goal.
Horrible. I watched Splash the other day. I can't think of Daryl as a killer mermaid. That is an unintentional horror movie, isn't it? Isn't that a horror movie? Like presented as a comedy?
Kind of. She gets put in danger. I don't know. I haven't watched that movie in so long.
I've never heard of it. What's it about?
Mermaid. Yeah.
Yeah, this woman,
Mermaid, okay.
when she gets splashed, she turns back into a mermaid. And Tom Hanks's character like falls in love with her and knows her secret, and they're out somewhere and she gets splashed with water, turns into a mermaid, a bunch of scientists kidnap her, he has to break her out, stuff like that. There's a lot more to it, but that's what I remember.
You remember more than I do.
That's really.
Yeah.
It's aged. Yeah. A lot of those movies have aged. They're not the way we remember them when we first saw them, for sure.
Yeah.
That one and Mannequin are two movies that are borderline horror movies. I think they're supposed to be comedies, and I don't know.
Mannequin. This makes me feel old. Mannequin used to come on the TV Guide channel when they started showing movies on TV Guide channel. Mannequin was on maybe once a month for some reason. So if there was nothing else on and it was on TV Guide, I would watch the whole thing. And I watched it a few years ago again, and I was like, wow, this is really bad. Why did I like this movie? But it's fun.
It is fun. Anthony, Tom Hanks wants to marry her after 3 days, only in the 80s. The good old days. And speaking of getting married, congratulations, Briana, on your engagement.
Thank you.
Oh, congratulations. Yay.
It's a big day's coming. Faster than
Fantastic.
I expected. So I feel like we were just like 2 years out, and now it's like 4 months away. And we're not even doing a big wedding, but I'm still like, oh, this is happening. I think our families are more nervous and more stressed about it than we are. We're doing a lot of non-traditional things, so it's like I'm not wearing a white dress, and I was really worried about how my parents would react to that because I'm in the South, and that's a really big thing. It's like the white dress, the traditional bride, and I'm like, I don't wear white. I am white. Like the dress would just it would look all the same. So I'm wearing, it's a black dress. And then we're basically eloping, but with family there. This is very small. And honestly, I feel like I could write a horror story about planning weddings because there's always, you think it's going to be one way and people try to worm their way in and try to like push you to do other things. It's like, it becomes everyone else's wedding too, weirdly. And I don't think I was ready for that. People get offended if you don't do what they want you to do. And I'm like,
Yeah,
I'd almost rather there be a monster here.
My coworker just recently got married a couple days ago, actually, and just seeing her at work, the closer it got to it, the more dark circles you could see. You know, she was talking about, I guess, I don't know. I would be curious to see if you had this experience as well. But in Japan, it's very, it's more about the subtle things you do, or the things that you don't say are kind of almost more important than what you do or what you do say. And so she had to be very careful where she drew the line of inviting people. So, you know, okay, I'm going to invite up to cousin number 1, but is this an okay line to draw, because is cousin number 2 going to get upset? So she was really struggling with where to draw that line, because she didn't want a huge wedding either. So I'm just wondering if that was something you had to grapple with, or keeping it small was easy.
No, it's been very hard. Gabe, my fiance, he has a ton of cousins. Just like I have like 4, and I'm not close to any of them. He probably has, no joke, like 25 cousins. And I was like, you cannot invite all your cousins. You just can't do that. So we were very much like, okay, immediate family. But then we're like, okay, immediate family plus your grandpa. And it's like immediate family, but your sister can't bring, you know, their partner that they have only known for 2 seconds or whatever. So weird things like that. But yeah, we still get pushback sometimes. Like people have been like, oh, well, when's the bridal shower and all this? And I'm like, we're not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm too busy. And we don't need anything is the other thing, because we've been living together for a few years. So it's like everyone's already gotten us like the pots and the pans and the towels. I'm like, please just give us money, because we're going to Japan for our honeymoon, actually. So I'm like, please just give me money so I can fly back, because it's very expensive to get there.
Yes.
Not
the tickets
so much
are just
there.
Highway robbery right now.
Yeah.
I could, don't get me started on that, because the plane tickets are insane.
I think it's only like $40 or $50 a night to stay at one of the hotels we found, but then it's like tickets are bad. It's like if you can get there, you're good, but getting there is tough.
Yeah,
another
$3,000 is pretty standard. So yeah. If you don't mind me asking, do you have a place you've decided that you're gonna visit while you're here? Or is it still...
So we're gonna go. We're starting in Tokyo. We were gonna go to Osaka, but I think we're just going to spend an extra day in Tokyo. We're gonna go to Nara and Kyoto. And I think there was somewhere else, but I'm a big animal person, and I want to feed the deer real bad.
I was gonna say Nara for the deer, right? Yeah.
Real bad, yeah. And Kyoto, I've always wanted to go. Tokyo, no brainer. I wish we could go to Okinawa, but it's so far out.
Yeah, Okinawa is a completely different culture. It doesn't even, I mean, it makes sense because it was originally a completely different culture, but it doesn't even feel like Japan at all.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, the beaches are gorgeous and everything. But yeah, Kyoto is a great choice. Great choice.
I don't want to go too far into the country because I'm afraid I'll scare some old people. I have tattoos.
Same.
I don't want the old people to be frightened.
They're
already going to be frightened because Gabe is 6'3" and has a beard. So everywhere we go, it's just going to be like, there he is.
You'll definitely be fine in Tokyo, maybe even Kyoto as well. But the old people, they could use it. give them a little bit of a shock, jumpstart their heart a little.
You're like, oh wow, still can be surprised. But I'm excited. There's a lot. The tail end of my year so far is a lot of wedding and honeymoon and deadlines. So it feels like everything is just working up to that chunk of time, which is stressful.
I really like your idea of a wedding, like a wedding story horror. That sounds like a great story.
I have some ideas when I get past all the deadlines. I think there's a couple that I want to submit to calls that I've started that are wedding themed. Very thinly based on my experiences.
Well, I feel like some of the best stories come out of a kernel of truth, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Lydia Dietz wedding dress. I love it.
Part of me wanted to wear the bright red one, and then I was like, no. I don't wear a lot of red either, so I was like, it's not it.
I think the black dress is a good way to go. That's a great choice.
It will be hot, but that's okay.
And our friend Bo is here. Bo, thanks for coming by. Evening, everyone. Glad I could still catch some of the live stream. Thanks for coming by. Yeah, good stuff. So, you have a book coming out soon, right, Briana?
Yes. Tail end of this year, I have Tiger Cult with Darklit Press. And then Sam and I were going to talk about this together, but she had to dip. Sam and I actually co-authored a book. This is the first time we are mentioning that by we, I mean me, that we're releasing that probably later this year as well. It's epistolary. It's found footage, but not found footage because it's a book. It's called Bugs, and it's about two women in a small town who discover this abandoned animal shelter and all this bad stuff that went on there. And there's a lot of body horror and trauma bonding and yearning, and it's been a lot of fun. It's the first time we've written anything together, so that's been an experience.
What was that like to collaborate?
It was really fun. Our brains work the same, so I wasn't really worried about that. The biggest thing has been we didn't plot this because I couldn't think of a logistical way to outline with two people. So she's been like pantsed. We've just been kind of going with whatever we feel. And we're realizing now, because we're almost at the end, we're like, we're going to have to go and clean a bunch of stuff up because there's details from the beginning that I don't even remember. And I'm sure we're going to read it and be like, oh, this person just disappeared. So stuff like that. But yeah, I would do it again. Seems great.
Wow. Is there a certain method you use to collaborate? I know some people use like Google Docs or spreadsheets or, and they kind of both like a dynamic document, or did you each do bits and pieces?
So we use Google Docs because you can access it anywhere, and it'll email you when there are changes. And what we've been doing, because it's not like it's not like a chapter by chapter book, it's sections, is we'll do so in the beginning, it's mostly emails. So they email back and forth. So then each person has an email. And then as you get further in, there's it's emails and texts. So we would do half of a text conversation, then the other person would fill in. Or in this one, there's a lot of places where weird things happen with the technology, like the texts don't go through or the calls don't go through, which is convenient for us because then you only have to write one side of the conversation. But we kind of have fallen into a flow. We do a little a pound symbol when we're done, just so the person knows okay, this is my section, I'm done. But I think even without that now, I could kind of tell because I can feel when the beats change, which is interesting.
And Laurel has a great question. How do you prioritize a collab among your other work?
Oh man. So I have ADHD. So my life is just hectic. I only this year got officially diagnosed and medicated, which has helped so much. But jumping from project to project really has never bothered me. It's kind of how I thrive. But for Bugs, we kind of just I'm looking at it like a treat. If I get every day, I'm okay, I need to do this, this, and this. And if I get all of those done, then I can work on Bugs. So that's kind of how that's happened. And we weren't sure when we were going to release it or how long it was going to be. So it's only been recently that we've been okay, we have kind of a timeline. And I think the deadline really helps because I feel like I should be at least opening the document every day now. Put a little fire under my ass, I guess.
There must be a whole different set of a whole different mindset to collab like that. I'm sorry, Taylor.
Yeah, it is.
That was essentially where I was going with it. So,
oh yeah, it's like, it reminds me a lot of acting, because I used to act, because you have to kind of sort of intuit where the other person might have been going, or sometimes she'll write something and I'll interpret it completely differently, and I'll take the book in another direction, and we just have to kind of, it's like improv, really. We just kind of feed off each other and keep going. And like I said, we still haven't really gone in and edited, so I'm curious to see how that goes. I think we're going to switch chapters, so like she's going to edit my stuff and I'm going to edit hers, and then maybe we'll do like a last pass for the whole thing each. I'm not sure yet, so I can't speak to that as well, but it's definitely different, and I think you have to be open to, you have to kind of step back and let go of more of the control, because you only have like half the work.
yeah, I was going to say essentially kind of the same thing that Steve said, but I imagine it depends on the way that you write, whether you're like a planner like PL who's planned out his books and knows exactly where they're going to go, or as you mentioned, a pantser or whatever. So I guess it depends on your usual style. But do you find when you're collabing with someone, you have like a really good idea of, oh, this could end up here, but it's not in the chapter I'm writing now. So you don't put it in. And then maybe when you get the work back, it's been taken in a different direction. Do you find that that's more exciting as an author? Like, oh, I didn't imagine it could go that way? Or is it more kind of like, ah, man, I really wish I could have written this idea that I had?
So because I talk to Sam like all the time, yeah, that makes sense. I talk to Sam like every day. Usually we'll just like gush about the book to each other. So we kind of do a lot of brainstorming that way. Like right now we're probably like a couple chapters ahead when we're talking. So I guess it's kind of plotting, but not really, because we'll change our minds, or things will unfold differently. Like we knew toward the end we wanted them to actually meet, but we weren't sure how we were going to get them to meet or what that was going to be like. Because a lot of it's emails, it was really hard to figure out how we were going to switch, because obviously if they're together, they're not going to email each other in the same room. That's weird. So finding other ways to convey that, and I think the found footage aspect of it definitely makes it harder, because we have to be a little more inventive.
How do you incorporate found footage? How do you get that feeling in text? Like what methods do you use to get that kind of that vibe of like someone's watching a found footage movie?
So we have, like I said, we have the emails, we have the text messages. We actually do mention, like, there's like transcripts of like video recordings. There's security camera footage. There's part of the book where someone's in an ambulance and there's like a camera in the ambulance, which I don't know if that's an actual thing or not, but it works for the story. So you have to be willing to try new things and sort of, experiment and see what works. Like the texting thing, I had no clue how that was going to work, because we're used to doing a whole chunk. And obviously with texting, you can't just do one part of the conversation and then move on, let nothing happen. So that's been tricky. Yeah, since it's my first like all out found footage book, I can't say with, any degree of, I don't feel like I have the authority to speak on it. But I hope that it comes across the way that we want it to.
Nice. I know found footage is a really popular subgenre, so I'm excited to read it.
Yeah, I love found footage. I watch a lot of it. I've started reading more of it. I think it's becoming much more of a thing in horror literature, and I'm excited.
Do you have a favorite found footage movie?
Oh, there's this Japanese one, Noroi, which is, I think, The Curse. That's my favorite. And then my second favorite is this really divisive one. It's As Above, So Below.
Oh, wait.
Where they go into the catacombs. People either love that one or just really hate it. But I love it.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was good.
Yeah, it's fun.
And Anthony has a question. For Stephen Taylor, how do you juggle books that come through that you want to review on your channels that you don't want to review but just don't have the time, especially books you know you won't like?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Taylor, you want to go first?
Well, I guess when I hear come through, it depends on how they come through, right? So if it's a book that I'm picking up, then I probably think I'm going to like it if I'm going out of my way to choose it at this point. Of course, it happens where I'm wrong and I'm like, yeah, nope, this didn't work. But if it's something that I chose of my own volition, then I'll definitely do a review. I always talk about every book I read and what I thought about it, but I might do it in like a wrap up. I definitely won't do an individual review for that book. If I went into it, really thinking I was going to like it. Only if a book makes me angry do I do rant reviews. So those are quite rare. They do exist. If a book makes me angry, I'm gonna let them have it. But that's a rare occasion. If it comes through in the sense that someone offers an arc to me or something like that, I kind of have a party line at this point. So if I think I'm not going to like it, I just say, I don't think I'm the reviewer for you, for your work. But if it's something that I think I'm going to like, but I won't have time. Basically, I say to people at this point, thank you for reaching out, and I would be happy to read your book, but I can't tell you when I'll read it, but I can tell you that when I do, there will be a review. But I can't tell you when that will be. And if that still works for you, you can send it my way, kind of thing. And I have had some authors say, well, I actually need it by this date. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not the reviewer for you, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
But quite a few reviewers have said, oh, that's fine, whenever you get to it. So that's kind of how I handle those things. And, I always make sure to say there will be a review. The nature of the review depends on what I think of the book, so, but I do tend to be more careful with self-pub reviews than I would with traditional published. I think it would be disingenuous to say that I'm not a little more careful in that sphere. Yeah. What about you, Steve?
Well, for me, I very rarely do arcs anymore. It has to be someone I know personally, or someone or something that I know I'm pretty sure I'll enjoy. It's just hard to commit the time with everything else, and I don't want to say I'm going to read and review it and give it an honest review and really engage with it if I don't have the time. So I don't, especially a physical arc, because I would hate for someone to spend their money to send me a book and then not have it out in time. I feel terrible when that happens. So I very, very rarely accept arcs anymore, just because it's hard. It's hard to keep up. There's a lot of stuff to do, and so I don't want to say I'll review something and not have a review out like in a reasonable amount of time. So it's pretty rare for me to do arcs. Only people that I know personally, I'll accept them, but very rare. Yeah, but great question, Anthony. And another Anthony, Grave Encounters.
I love it. My main character in Unboxed is loosely based on the guy from Grave Encounters, mashed up with this YouTuber I won't name because I'm afraid if I keep naming him that he's going to find out and then I'll get in trouble. So Grave Encounters is good. I mean, it would do the stupidest thing to get in trouble for. I don't want to get canceled for that, so I gotta not do that anymore.
Your secret's safe with us. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If you really want to know, I'll DM it to you. But it's just some guy.
Yeah. We talked earlier about marketing and social media platforms. I wonder for you as an indie author, what is it like to how do you choose how much time you put into each platform with not knowing what direction it's going to head in, or if it'll drastically, like the algorithms will change, or how do you decide where to spend your time on different platforms?
So I think there are different platforms that work for everyone. There's the platform that you like. You need a good combination of, you need to like it and you need to also see some success on it. because you can't be everywhere at once. You will just burn out. I have scaled back a lot. When I first started, I was literally everywhere I could be, and it was just eating into so much of my writing time that I had to scale back. I'm a big person I'm a big believer in analytics. So I love any platform that lets me see audience insights and analytics. I will look at all that data, and that kind of lets me know, I'm on the right track. A lot of it will tell you, when the best time to post is and what posts do best. So I try to optimize my content based on those insights. Engagement and consistency, I would say, are the two biggest things on any platform. So if you can only, like a newsletter, if you can only do a newsletter once a month, that's fine, as long as you do it once a month. Don't just send one whenever you feel like it, because then people will know when to expect it. And the same goes for, Instagram. You don't have to post on Instagram every day, so long as you have a set schedule, because people will remember, oh, she posts every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or, there's going to be a Catterday post every Saturday, or a Face Friday post, something like that. So yeah, it's really tricky. It's a lot of trial and error. I wish I had a better, more helpful answer, but it really does it just takes time.
You're on mute, Steve.
He's in a mess. No, I was
It
asking.
wouldn't be a video call without someone being on mute on accident.
I've been notorious for doing that lately. I've been off my game. But PL, what about you? How do you decide?
Well, Briana made some excellent points. Like as you know, Twitter is my preferred social media platform. No secret about that. I am also on Instagram and Facebook, but much more sparingly. And as Briana said, I think you have to find what works for you. And in terms of like, I don't have a huge following Twitter, but somewhat substantial amount. So the thing for me I find hard is I'm trying to keep up with what everyone else is doing. And because of things that have been going on recently with Twitter and the algorithm, it's much harder. So I have to spend more time going to see what the individual pages of the people that I that I really care about, what they're doing, and actually try to make sure to boost them or see what's going on. And I find that that's taking a lot more time than ever before. So that, as well as paring down my time, because if I'm going to do that, that's gonna drastically reduce the time that I spend, on Twitter, because I have to spend time doing that, right? I hope the algorithms readjust in the future, but you never know, right? It's kind of a bit of a crapshoot right now. But at the same time, I think I know for me, Twitter's where I get the most engagement. It's where I meet the most people. Like I met Steve and Taylor on Twitter, and look at, that's gone really well for me, obviously. Been fantastic. And most of my dear friends, that some of them who now I'm going to be seeing in the future, like I'm going to Scotland next year for Worldcon, and a lot of people that I've met on Twitter specifically are going to be there, and I'm planning to meet up with people. And so I don't think you put a price on what potentially social media can produce in terms of enriching your life and bring you actually real friends. And Brianna and Samantha, they met on Twitter, and but from the book standpoint, I think I've been fortunate, I've been blessed that some people have just seen my books, or seen me tweet something, and they've bought it, and I've been totally stunned when that happens, right? It's like, wow, he just saw some, and then so I think, and that's free marketing. That's well, depending if you're paying for but essentially it's free marketing, right? And I think that's one of the cheapest, easiest way. I mean, various authors run ads. I'm not sure if Briana, you run Amazon ads or done things like that, but there's, the beauty of social media is the outreach, and essentially for free for the most part, depending on the platform, you can reach people and let them know about your books and let them connect with you. Like if someone has a question about my book, I get DMs all the time. Hey, like, is there going to be an audiobook of this, or I really like this character, or when's the next book coming out? Or they can just message you, right? And that's all business related, right? It's all book related. Yes, it's engagement and getting to know people and all that, but it's getting your books out there. So invaluable tool, definitely.
Are newsletters, and Briana, you mentioned you're big on numbers. Are newsletters, how is the return on your time investment for with your newsletter? Do you have a lot of, do you find a good return on your time that you spend?
Yeah, so it took me a while to find a frequency. I send a newsletter once a month because I just pulled that from, how often do I like to receive newsletters? And me personally, if you send me a newsletter more than once a month, I'm not going to read it. No matter who you are, it's just, everyone has so many emails. I have so many emails. I just can't keep up. So for me, for some reason, newsletters are the one thing I put off until like 3 days before I have to send it out. I don't know why, because then I sit down and do it and it takes about 10 minutes. But in my head, maybe it's the ADHD. I'm like, okay, this is going to take all day and we're going to have to block out all this time. No. Sometimes it seems like writing a newsletter is harder than writing a book. But over time, I learned about reader magnets, and I've done giveaways where people traded newsletter swaps and things like that. And a lot of those people have gone on to buy the books. I have a pretty good open rate. I've worked hard to get it up there, so I'm pleased with that. The thing about newsletters, I do still think they're very important and everyone needs them, because it is the only form of, social proof and advertising you have that you own all of it. Like, any platform could go down or whatever. You could still send a newsletter somehow. It's not like Twitter, where if Twitter disappears, like, it's gone. All those followers are gone. And some of them might follow you other places, but you just lose all of them. And with a newsletter, it's just you are directly talking to your subscribers and they are expecting you to sell to them. So it's not as intimidating, at least for me. Like, I'm not like, oh, I don't want to sound salesy, because of course I'm going to sound salesy. It's my newsletter. And I've gotten a lot of engagement lately, which has been fun, because I was using Review, which was owned by Twitter, and they closed it down, of course. And I switched to Substack, and it's fun because Substack has a lot more social networking aspects to it. Like, you can like the newsletter, or people can reply faster. So that's been a lot of fun. I've had some interesting conversations with people come out of the newsletters. Good ones, not bad ones. I realized that was leading, but yeah, I think newsletters are very important. I think they are hard to get right. It's a lot of trial and error and reading other people's newsletters, seeing what works. Tammy, what's her last name? I can't remember her last name. This woman named Tammy. I think it starts with an L. I am so sorry. She has this book, Newsletter Ninja, and it was a game changer for me. She talks all about, reader magnets and how to get organic signups and why you shouldn't buy emails. Don't buy emails. Don't sign people up without their permission. All these other things. So I highly recommend that. I also think it's only like $3 on Kindle.
Tammy L.
Brock.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad you said it.
I don't think it's right. That's just how I'm just choosing to say it that way.
Okay. We'll go with it.
But yeah, I think she has a sequel to that one coming out where she explains more, but she's great. Some of the stuff she recommends hasn't worked for me, but I will say it's worth a shot, and I wouldn't be any good at newsletters at all without that book.
Fantastic.
I think that's a really good point about something that you own, because we recently, I think it might have been last week in the Friday Conversations, talked about websites, authors having their own website, and whether that's worth the time sink that it takes to set it up and update it and everything. And that, I think, with the whole Twitter changing and everything, it seemed like a lot of people were having a discussion of, well, where can I find you if not here? Mm-hmm. And it sounds like having a newsletter or a website, or maybe both, is good to just have a hub to say, if the worst should happen, this is where you can find me.
Yeah, and even if you don't want to commit to a newsletter, what you could do is you can set up a sign-up form on your website, and you can blog semi-regularly, and people can sign up to get your blog post, it's kind of a newsletter. But again, you don't always own your website either, so that's kind of tricky.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I post a blog monthly, and I link it through. I tweet it out on my social media platforms, but I also link it through to Goodreads. And so a lot of people who like, because I also blog, they like my Goodreads reviews and they follow me on Goodreads, then they will frequently look at my blog because it comes out, the notification that I've posted something. So I find that's got a lot of engagement from my blog. So, and of course, I doing things like I do author interviews called 6 Elemental Interviews. So I pose 6 questions to authors, and I blessed to be part of Before We Go blog and be an assistant editor there. So I also cross post those interviews on Before We Go blog. So it's on a blog site. So, just things that get exposure and your name out there, but I mean, I do the interviews for authors. That's why I do them. It's not really so much for me. I do it because I want to promote authors. But I mean, again, it just, I guess the byproduct is makes you more searchable, and that's always a positive. So that, it's all good stuff.
Yeah. It's networking too.
Yes, absolutely. As this is, being on YouTube, and I've learned, so like I said earlier, Taylor wasn't here. I've learned so much from Steve and Taylor about, about YouTube, and I'm planning to start my own channel. So, I mean, I guess Taylor already have a channel, but I mean, do something with it other than comment on other people's channels. So, I think that's another great space where if the rest of social media dissolves, I think YouTube's going to be around. So, that's if you have the will and the comfort with being in front of the camera, I think YouTube is a great place to, especially if you're an author, to, even if you're someone who you want to do, appearances on other people's programs and get yourself out there. Spotify, like doing, radio only, like audio only use, that's great too. But yeah, all that stuff, it's all good.
And Anthony, yes, we are going to Glasgow next year.
Yeah, Glasgow, Worldcon 2024. I can't wait.
PL, I'll give you a sultry British accent if you need it.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry, and again, I apologize because I just had the dental surgery. I don't sound like myself. I can't even smile properly, so sorry. Sometimes it's like I don't sound like myself, but
you're fine.
The dedication, man. If I had just come from the dentist, I'd be like, see ya. Props to you.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to cut out soon to take some meds, but yeah, I just want to show up as,
I mean, I sounded like I was going through puberty earlier, so my throat's been fine all day. And then it's like, oh, you're gonna talk to people, here you go. Good luck.
Anthony had a question for all authors. With Audible, would you use professionals to do recordings of your novels, or would you use your friends to reduce costs?
Well, I did. Sorry, Briana, did you?
No, I was just gonna say, be careful using your friends, because sometimes your friends think that they're going to be really good at voice acting, and then they're not, and it's very hard to tell them that they're not.
Yeah, I if I was going to do it, I'd probably be more inclined to do it myself. I don't have the voice. I'd love to hire someone like Steve, who has an incredible voice. But
I do it for free.
But I went with professionals, with voice actors, right, for the one audiobook that I have, and I think this stuff, there's lots of ways to cut costs as an indie author. I think everybody has their tolerance level of the things that they won't scrimp on, and like Briana said, that's one of them. I just believe that nominally you should get voice actors. They're really good, and when you produce an audiobook and you see how much work goes into that, my opinion is that if you can, I mean, if you're lucky enough to have someone who's a voice actor or has some background, or but it's a lot of work, and I think that having professional just lends that extra bit of credence to you, especially as an indie. I think that's what I went for. So
yeah, a lot of companies too, you can do royalty share. So there's no upfront. You just split the cost. And then some voice actors will only do like, I need payment up front per hour. So it really just depends. And you can also have companies that will do the audiobook for you, which is very nice because then they just handle all that. Like the Reyes incident audiobook, I pitched to Fireside and they took care of all that for me. So there's like professional voice actors doing that and everything. And I didn't have to, it's royalty share. I didn't have to do anything, which was nice because they were just like, the book's coming out. And I'm like, all right, awesome. Didn't have to edit it. Didn't have to no back and forth. It's been great. So if you can get a setup like that, I would say that's probably the best. Of course, if you're Trad Pub, they handle all that for you, as far as I know.
Narrating is tough, I have to say. It's very tough. I read short stories once in a while, and like a 1,000-word short story takes me like 5 hours to record and to edit. It's ridiculous. It's tough. It's not easy. It sounds easy. It's not easy. But
yeah, obviously I can't speak from an author's point of view, but a reader's point of view, the audiobook narration can make or break a book. It really, really can. So I think, as PL said, I'm sure everyone has their own things that they're willing to not spend money on. But it seems to me like getting a professional to do that. It's an art form, you pay someone who knows how to do the art, I would say. An example of that is like the Joe Abercrombie series, The Blade Itself. I read that one physically, and I was like, I don't get it, like with Abercrombie. And everyone was like, what do you mean you don't get it? And then they were like, well, go with audiobook for the second book. And I did. And I was like, this is so much fun. So I think the narrator really can ramp up a series, if they're a professional. So
Stephen Pacey's very good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, everyone talks about Glockta's voice, but Glockta's voice, it's so good.
Unfortunately, I am going to have to dip. I am very hungry. My stomach keeps growling, and I'm afraid it's going to get to a point where it is audible to other people.
No problem. So,
it's been so good seeing y'all.
Yeah. So for people looking to connect with you, where's the best place to find you?
I'm on Twitter as Bri Morgan Books, and then I'm on Instagram and TikTok as Briana Morgan Books, and then my website is brianamorganbooks.com.
Awesome. And that link is in the description, so you can find all of Briana's links there in the description. So, PL, before we go, will you tell us where we can find you?
Again, Twitter at PL Stores Writes, website for the book-related stuff, www.plstore.com. Before we go, blog, where I'm assistant editor for more my reviews and things like that. And Instagram and Facebook less frequently. But again, Lord and King just came out today on Amazon and Ingram and the Wider Network. So thank you. And so that's book 3 in the Dragon Kingdom Saga, 3 of 7. So, and the Lion's Pride is scheduled for 2024. So the beat will keep on going on with Lord Othrin. So
awesome. Congratulations.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Taylor?
Speaking of Twitter not showing you things, I didn't even see your tweet about that till it was late. I was like, oh my God, what type of friend am I? I haven't retweeted this.
No, I figured it was. Thank you. Well, you have your copy now, so.
I'm going to go retweet it like right now.
Oh, thank you so much.
Before I forget.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I spend way too much time online, so I'm surprised I didn't see it.
You can find me at my booktube channel, Made Between the Pages, below. All of my links to my social media sites, Twitter, Goodreads. I'm also an assistant editor at Before We Go blog. So you can find all of those links in the description of my videos. It's probably the best place. That's the best hub to find me right now.
Awesome.
Yep.
Great. Well, thanks to all of you. Thank you, Briana. We know you're busy, so thank you for taking time with us.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, and PL and Taylor, it's always a pleasure. It's always fun to see you. And
thank you, sir, for hosting.
Of course. Yeah. And thanks everyone in the chat. Hope everyone has a great weekend. Hope things are going well for everyone, and we will talk to everyone very soon.